Welcome back to the Pro Ticker Podcast, your Monday morning edition covering major financial magazine headlines, everyone.
It is good to be back. And looking at the terminals this morning, major might be a bit of an understatement. I mean, we are looking at a week that could really redefine global trade.
I was just checking the date to make sure I wasn't dreaming. It's Monday, January 19, 2026. And usually this is a pretty quiet time of year,
Right.
But this morning, nobody is talking about the weather. All eyes are on, of all places, the Arctic Circle.
Specifically Greenland.
Right.
And for a very, very good reason.
Right. I think a lot of our listeners woke up, saw the headlines, and just thought it had to be a mistake.
Yeah.
Because this isn't just a small diplomatic spat.
No.
This is a potential trade war centered on a giant island of ice and rock.
That's it, exactly. And we've pulled together reports from CNBC, Bloomberg, Reuters, and Yahoo Finance to try and make sense of it all, because the speed of this is it's shocking.
So what's the mission for this deep dive?
The mission is to connect the dots. We need to figure out how a dispute over buying an island has, in just, 48 hours, triggered tariff threats against 8 nations, sent gold to record highs, and put the EU's so-called economic nuclear option on the table.
Okay, let's jump right into the catalyst, because this all happened so fast. I mean, we've heard about the U.S. wanting to buy Greenland before, but it always felt like a talking point.
It did.
Reading the Yahoo Finance and CNBC reports, this time feels completely different. What exactly is the Greenland crisis?
It's different because it's not a suggestion anymore. It's an ultimatum. Over the weekend, President Trump just massively escalated his push to buy Greenland, which, for anyone who needs a refresher, is a semi-autonomous part of Denmark.
Right, so Copenhagen handles the big stuff, like defense. And the president wants what was the phrase, a complete and total purchase.
That's the exact wording. But here's the part that's really shaking the markets. To force the sale, he announced a 10% tariff on imports from 8 NATO allies.
And the timeline is it's insane. It starts February 1st.
Less than 2 weeks away.
In trade terms, that's basically tomorrow. You can't redirect ships that fast. And the 10% is just the beginning, isn't it? It gets worse.
It does. It's a classic leverage play. If no deal is reached, the tariffs jump to 25% on June 1st. It's a massive stick to force them to the table.
Let's talk about that target list. It seems very specific. Denmark is obviously on it. But who else is in the crosshairs here?
It's a really interesting list. It's Denmark, of course, but also Norway, Sweden, France, Germany, the UK, the Netherlands, and Finland.
So that's basically the industrial heart of Northern Europe. I mean, Germany alone.
It is, and the thinking seems to be that these are the countries that have either backed Denmark's sovereignty or have military assets in the Arctic. The message is basically, stand in our way and you will pay for it.
Which brings us to the big question. Why? Why now? Bloomberg and Yahoo Finance have some reporting on the official line, which is national security.
Officially, yes. The administration is arguing that, China and Russia are getting way too interested in Greenland. China wants the rare earth minerals.
Which are in everything from our phones to fighter jets.
Everything. And Russia is militarizing its side of the Arctic. So the argument is that Denmark just can't protect it. I think I saw a quote, something about dog sleds.
Yes, that Trump claimed they only have 2 dog sleds as protection. So the U.S. needs to buy it to secure the whole hemisphere.
That's the official argument. It's a classic strategic play. But you found something in the Bloomberg reporting that suggests there's maybe a more personal angle to this.
This was just a wild detail. Bloomberg got hold of a letter Trump sent to the Norwegian Prime Minister.
Jonas Gahr Støre.
Right. And in it, he actually connects his push to buy Greenland with being snubbed for the Nobel Peace Prize last year.
Wait, he put that in writing? Seriously?
You did. The quote is, "I no longer feel an obligation to think purely of peace."
Wow.
The implication is that since he wasn't rewarded for his diplomacy, he's, taking the gloves off.
That just reframes the whole thing. It's not just policy, it's personal. And it sort of fits with what his team is saying. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent was on Meet the Press.
I saw that clip.
And he was very blunt. He said, Europeans project weakness, U.S. projects strength. They see this as an assertion of American power.
So on the other side of this, you have Europe. I can't imagine the mood in Brussels is very good right now. What's the reaction?
Oh, it's furious. According to CNBC and Reuters, the Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen said flat out, Europe will not be blackmailed.
Strong words. But is the rest of Europe behind her? They can be a bit divided sometimes.
Not on this, it seems. The German finance minister, Lars Klingbeil, said the limit has been reached, and they're not just talking, they're preparing for retaliation.
How big are we talking?
We're talking about $93 billion. That's around $108 billion in U.S. goods.
$108 billion. That is not a warning shot. That's a full-on barrage.
It is. But the really big story in the Reuters piece is how they might do it. There's a push, especially from France, to use something called the anti-coercion instrument, the ACI.
ACI. Okay,
Yeah.
that sounds serious. What is it?
Think of it as the EU's economic big bazooka. It's a tool they created for exactly this kind of situation, where a foreign power tries to use economic force against a member state, and it goes way beyond just tariffs.
Beyond tariffs. How so?
Well, if they trigger it, the EU can block U.S. companies from bidding on public contracts. They can freeze trade and services, block investments. It's basically weaponizing access to their entire single market.
So it's not just your bourbon will cost more, it's your construction company can't build our bridges.
Exactly. It's the economic nuclear option, which is why there's some debate. France is apparently all for it, wants to show strength. Germany, on the other hand,
Germany is an export economy. They sell a lot of cars to the U.S. They're probably a little more nervous.
they're terrified. An all-out trade war would devastate their auto industry, but the pressure to act as a bloc is huge. And speaking of bad timing, Bloomberg pointed out Ursula von der Leyen, the EU Commission president.
She wasn't even there when this broke, was she?
No, she was in Paraguay, of all places, signing a huge trade deal with South America. It was supposed to be this big win for global trade.
And instead, the Greenland news just completely buried it.
Completely. And now everyone's saying the existing EU-US trade deal is basically on life support. Just shows how fragile everything is.
It's chaos. And that chaos is absolutely spilling to the markets. You said the terminals were lighting up this morning. What's the damage?
Well, it's a sea of red for stocks and a rocket launch for safe havens. The stocks Europe 600 is down about 1.2%, which is a big daily move. But the real story is where the money is fleeing to.
Let me guess. Gold.
Gold is the ultimate panic button, and it's being slammed. It hit a new record high, close to $4,700 an ounce. That's up over 2% today. Silver's also jumping, up over 4%.
$4,700 gold. Wow. So the play is basically short Europe, long precious metals.
That's the Greenland trade, yeah. Investors are running for cover, and there's one sector in Europe that is just getting crushed.
Given the German nervousness we talked about, I'm going to guess it's the automakers.
You got it. The numbers from CNBC are brutal. BMW is down 4.6%. Porsche, 4.2%. Mercedes-Benz, 3.6%. Even Ferrari hit a 52-week low.
So for anyone listening, why are they getting hit so hard? It's not just about selling cars in the U.S., right?
No, it's way deeper than that. It's the supply chains. A modern car is the perfect example of globalization. The engine might be from Germany, the electronics from the U.S., all assembled in South Carolina.
Right. And those parts cross borders over and over again.
Exactly. A 10 or 25% tariff at every crossing just destroys the business model. It turns a profitable car into a money loser overnight. The market understands that, and it's dumping those stocks first.
Makes total sense. But I saw a funny bit of jargon in the Bloomberg report, a little gallows humor from the traders. Something about taco.
Ah, yes, the taco theory. It stands for Trump always chickens out.
Taco. I like it. So the idea is this is just a negotiating tactic.
Right.
He makes a huge threat and then walks it back for a smaller win.
That's the hope for some bulls. They think this is a bluff. But a lot of analysts are saying this time feels different.
Why is that?
The timeline. February 1st is so close. There's no time for lengthy negotiations or for things to cool down. It leaves very little room for the chickening out part before real economic damage is done.
So the taco might not be on the menu this time. We've focused on the U.S. and Europe, but what about Asia? Are they just watching from the sidelines?
They are watching, and they're worried. CNBC reported that the Hang Seng and the Nikkei both slipped. It's a contagion. If the two biggest Western economies are fighting, it hits global demand, which hurts everyone.
And didn't China have some economic data out today?
They did, and it wasn't great. Q4 GDP growth slowed to 4.5%, which is the weakest in 3 years for them.
4.5% is still growth, but for China, that's a real slowdown.
It is. They just barely hit their 5% target for the whole year. So you've got this combination of a slowing China and a brewing trade war in the West. It's a terrible mix for investor confidence.
It really is. Okay, so we've got trade wars, slowing growth, markets in turmoil. Please tell me there's a bright spot somewhere in all this reporting.
There is, actually. But we have to leave Earth to find it.
You're kidding.
Not at all. Reuters pointed to a new report from Seraphim Space. And it shows that while things are getting messy down here, the economy of space is booming.
So,
Hmm.
what's driving that? Is it just space tourism?
No, it actually ties right back to our main topic, national security. Private investment in space tech jumped 48% last year to over $12 billion. And the big drivers are defense spending and what they call sovereign satellite systems.
So the same geopolitical tensions that are hurting the car industry are actually fueling the space industry.
Precisely. Countries are saying if we can't trust our allies on the ground, we need our own eyes in the sky. The U.S. accounts for 60% of that funding. So while we argue over islands, billions are flowing into building satellites.
That's fascinating. So as Earth becomes more fragmented, we invest more in looking down on it from above.
It's one of the few truly recession-proof sectors right now because it's driven by strategic necessity.
Okay, so let's bring it back to Earth for the finish line. We have this February 1st deadline. Tensions are incredibly high. What happens next?
Well, all eyes are on Davos. The World Economic Forum starts today, of all days.
The timing is just perfect, isn't it? The global elite gather to talk cooperation just as a trade war is breaking out.
The irony is unavoidable, but it's also the main event now. You have Trump attending, you have all the key European leaders attending. They're all going to be in the same small town in Switzerland.
So it's less of a conference and more of a crisis summit in the snow.
That's exactly what it's become. The tension is being described as palpable. You have the EU with their ACI threat and the US with the tariff threat, all in the same hallways. If a deal or a de-escalation is going to happen, it's probably going to start there this week.
It's going to be an absolutely critical week to watch.
Yeah.
So to recap the key points here before we go. This all started with a real estate deal for Greenland.
Which we learned was tangled up with a personal grievance over the Nobel Prize and a major national security ultimatum,
Which in turn led to a massive tariff threat against core European allies.
causing investors to flee to gold, crushing auto stocks, and leading the EU to consider using an economic nuclear weapon they've never used before.
Just a stunningly volatile start to the year.
It is, and it leaves us with a pretty provocative question to think about. We're used to tariffs being used to protect industries, steel or farming, but this is different. This is using tariffs as leverage to acquire territory. If this tactic works, or even if it just becomes normalized, how does that change the rules for everyone? If a superpower can essentially buy a province with an economic threat, what border is truly secure anymore?
That is a very heavy thought. A whole new kind of diplomacy. We'll be watching Davos to see how it plays out.
We certainly will.
That is all the time we have. Thanks for this deep dive. We'll see you all tomorrow morning with new headlines from major financial magazines.